First Take. I'm Todd Grisham filling in for Kerry Champion. Sitting to my left, of course, Skip Bayless. To my right, Stephen A. Smith.
How are you?
What's going on, big time? How are you? What's going on, my man? How's everything
Doing
going?
well. How have you
Welcome
been?
to the show.
Thank you
I'm good.
very much.
Do I get to shake hands? Well, I'm okay.
Like I'm the star. Coming up on the show, Rory wins again, but is he approaching Tiger in his prime? And the Jets are considering using Michael Vick in the wildcat formation.
What?
But is this a good idea? First up, though, who else? Johnny Manziel coming off the bench in the second quarter in his first ever NFL preseason game, going 7 for 11 with 63 yards, no touchdowns, but no picks either. He was also the Browns' leading rusher, carrying the ball 6 times for 27 yards. Here is Manziel's assessment of his first NFL experience.
For me, it was a good start. I mean, you have to start somewhere, and you have to set a foundation. Got my feet wet. Got my first preseason game under my belt. Now we got 3 more, and then head into the season.
Johnny did a nice job out there for his first time. The step from college to the NFL is huge, so it's a huge learning curve. But he seems to pick things up really fast, and I think he did a nice job in his first preseason game.
So Skip, Manziel got the crowd on their feet. He looked very comfortable.
The Detroit crowd, by the way.
Did he do enough on Saturday to prove that he should be the starter for the Browns?
Stephen A. Smith, I never thought in my wildest dreams I would be spending Saturday nights in August watching the Cleveland Browns play exhibition football. But I watched every snap that Brian Hoyer played with the first team, and I watched every snap, you know I did, watching Johnny Manziel playing with the backups. And what did my eye test tell me? The Cleveland Browns clearly will win more football games with Johnny Manziel as their starting quarterback. Now, this is, again, my eye test. I saw right off the bat, Johnny Manziel has a much stronger arm than Brian Hoyer does. I think, and this may be stretching a little bit, I think Johnny will prove to be even a little more accurate than a very accurate Brian Hoyer usually is. And obviously, Johnny Manziel is far more athletic and far more elusive than Brian Hoyer. And Johnny Manziel showed once again he is a rare creative playmaker. So, while Brian Hoyer was pretty good, because he's always pretty good, Johnny showed me right away he's going to be real good because he already has very good command of a brand new offense that's night and day from what he ran in college football. And he already showed me that he has a lot of pocket poise. And I'm going to throw it out one more time for those who have forgotten this or never heard this. At Texas A&M last year, among power conference quarterbacks, Johnny Manziel completed 73.5% of his pocket passes. Number 1 among power conference quarterbacks because this kid can throw darts out of the pocket. And when he set his feet and threw out of the pocket on Saturday night, I saw that. So, Brian Hoyer had 2 big drops by his first-team receivers, one by Miles Austin, then one in the end zone by Josh Gordon. But Johnny also got victimized by 2 drops by undrafted free agent receivers. One, unfortunately, from Vanderbilt University, but I won't mention that.
Okay.
And my point is, Johnny with the backups. Johnny's backup offensive line was mostly getting annihilated by 5-man pressure from Detroit's backups. And despite all that, I thought he played a little better than even Brian Hoyer, the incumbent starter, albeit coming off his ACL reconstruction. But Johnny showed me not only that he's earned the start against Washington on Monday Night Football on RG3 coming up a week from tonight, but I think if I'm the head coach, I already know in my heart of hearts who my starting quarterback is going to be. It's going to be that little man from Texas A&M.
Well, that's because you're biased and you have absolutely no objectivity when it comes to Johnny Manziel. Let's be clear.
Maybe I'm the only one with objectivity.
No, I will tell you this. You know, he clearly was a bit more nimble. There's no doubt about that. Was significantly more nimble than Hoyer. Got a live arm, had pocket presence. All of those things were true, what I saw from Johnny Manziel. But at the same time, it's not like anybody really stood out head and shoulders above the other. The thing for me is that I want to see Johnny Manziel in against the starters. I want to see what he does.
Okay.
He was playing against backups, all right? Let's put that in its proper perspective. Let's put in its proper perspective that because they're backups, the likelihood of you being as evasive may not be there, because there's a lot more speed with those starters. There's a lot more speed on this NFL level, and we will see. So I'm looking forward.
Remember, he's playing with backups.
I understand that, but what I'm saying to you is that he was also playing against backups.
Okay.
Let's put it in its proper context. Does that mean that Johnny Manziel doesn't deserve to be the starter? Of course not. Does it mean he won't start on opening day? Of course not. I'm not trying to imply any such thing. I'm simply saying it's the first preseason game, and it was against backups. Can we pump our brakes, calm down just a little bit here?
No.
Don't wear the pom-poms just yet. No. Let's see what the man does.
Did Johnny stink it up?
No.
In his debut?
Not at all.
Did he stink it up? He did not.
Not at all.
Would you give him a B for that performance?
Yes, I would.
Yes,
Plus,
I
there
would.
were receivers dropping passes.
Thank you.
Plus, he had pocket presence. He was evading the rush. He was scrambling. He was moving the chains. I think when you see Johnny Manziel do that and you know that he has that capability, obviously that appears to be more attractive than Hoyer. But I saw Hoyer throw some really good passes as well. I was impressed with how he was throwing the football. I just don't think he's the playmaker that Johnny is. But again, it's the first preseason game. Let's see what the man has when he's going in against starters, playing with starters, but going against starters too.
Okay, fair enough. But now that you have questioned my objectivity on Johnny Manziel, I'm going to be
objectivity on Johnny Manziel.
I'm going to be painfully objective from this point forward. Okay,
Really?
Couple of things.
Sure.
Number one, what is Kyle Shanahan trying to do to Johnny Manziel? Is he trying to give him the RG3 treatment? Because I'm here to point out, and I know you watched a lot of Johnny at Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Did Johnny run the read option at Texas A&M? Did they call plays in which he did the ride and decide with his tailback? No. They didn't call any running plays for Johnny, unless maybe it's some bootleg just to get a few yards, just to keep the defense honest.
Okay.
He's not a read option quarterback. Let's not, God help us all, confuse him with Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow needed the read option. That made Tim Tebow what he was. And I said that again and again and again on this show. You had to let Tim do the ride and decide. Either pull it back and run with it or pull it back and throw it. Tim needed that threat. Johnny does not need that threat. So what is Kyle Shanahan doing on the first, third, and short, having him run the read option? Johnny doesn't run it. I think it might have been the first time I've ever seen him run it before. And he said, well, with Terrence West, that kid, and I like that kid. He's got a lot of talent, but they haven't run a lot of read option together, and they missed their mesh point. Johnny's like, uh-oh, do I keep it?
That's because you got Johnny out of his element. That's not what he does.
Okay, so what's Kyle Shanahan doing? Because I don't want to see called running plays for Johnny Manziel. He runs enough on his own. You know that he
Well, maybe it's a
plays.
decoy. Maybe it's a decoy because you know. But what I mean by that is because you know what he's capable of with his legs. Maybe the mentality is, if I give the impression that we're considering running him with the football, using the read option, that it can throw defenses off. That's all. He may have no intention whatsoever of having Johnny out there trying to run the football from that scheme.
So then on the first play of his second series, it'd be the next play after the failed third and short.
Yep.
And then the punt. So they get the ball back in the second half, okay? First play, Johnny runs straight up the middle. I don't know if there's a quarterback draw, or I don't know if he just bolted because the pressure engulfed him too quickly. But he runs straight up the middle, and what happened? He went head first. He got his bell rung. And for the next 2 or 3 plays, Johnny's kind of shaking his head, and I'm saying, that's no good. That will not work at this level. We've had coach after coach sit here and say, well, can he stay healthy at the next level? And I always say, I'm not sure of that.
Well,
I hope so.
Opportunities later, he died. You know,
okay, but that was later. He had a 16-yard run later, and he got down, and he took a chunk out of the defense without risking him getting hurt.
Well, again, sometimes that happens. Sometimes you're not thinking, you're reacting. You're reacting instinctively, and you make a mistake. That's what he made a mistake.
Okay, it was a big mistake.
He got his bell rung, and then it didn't happen again.
And he got checked for a concussion on the sideline. God bless him. And they said the protocol proved nothing, and he was fine and allowed to continue. He has to learn that every time he carries the football, it has to be for whatever the defense will give you, and then you have to get down before there's any contact, because the rules are rigged for the quarterback. If the quarterback says, I give up, and I go feet first, and his slide was great. He slid better than RG3's ever thought about sliding in a professional football game. So if he could do that every time, I think he can gouge and gash defenses with his legs, but mostly off unplanned scrambles. You can't call it. You just have to let him have his head.
Okay, I agree with that. But in the end, what it comes down to is this. Johnny Football, I mean, he's exciting to watch. He's very entertaining. He's got the it factor working for him. I think that definitely is going to propel him to another level. It's going to put pressure on Pettin and those boys to put him in the lineup. We got to remember that this is a preseason game. Josh Gordon played. You got to that's not somebody you're going to be able to rely upon.
Probably not.
Of the regular season. I think that's safe to say. So that's another weapon that's not going to be there. Not that it was there for Johnny anyway because he was playing with the backups. Yep. But the point that I'm trying to make to you is that he has shown that he can make plays and that he's willing to do so with his legs. I want to see him with the starters. I want to see him playing against starters. And I want to see him fling the football then. That's what I want to see. Because if you can run, you can run, period. It doesn't matter what level you're on. If you've got speed, you got speed. But that's not what you look for from elite quarterbacks in this game. You look for their ability to fling the football.
Okay.
And that's what I need to see.
Okay, so gut feeling from what you saw Saturday night. Does Johnny have the capability of winning the starting job?
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll find out if he'll be the starter on Monday night in the second preseason game for the Browns as they play Washington. Some are saying it could be the highest-rated preseason game in NFL history, and yes, you can see it on ESPN. How about what happened on the golf course yesterday? Plenty of drama. In fact, one of the most dramatic final rounds in Majors history. With Tiger Woods out of the mix, you couldn't ask for more. Rory, Ricky Fowler, Phil Mickelson coming up the 18th fairway, all with a chance to win. In the end, McIlroy wins his third consecutive tournament and his fourth major, finishing up in the dark with flash bulbs everywhere. Was yesterday proof, Skip, that golf can flourish even without Tiger Woods?
I think so, but I'm not sure about that, and I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
I want to remind you, Mr. Smith, I love watching Tiger Woods play golf. I missed Tiger Woods on Saturday at the PGA. You know, I was rooting for him to make the cut because I thought it was a good place for him with almost no pressure and no expectation to break back through and have a very good major championship to end the year.
Okay.
I love the way he wears, he doesn't just wear his emotions on his sleeve, but they're thunderstorms of emotions. He's the one player out there over the last 15, 18 years. You can see every second what he's thinking because he's showing you how he's feeling. And obviously he's still capable, as we saw over on Thursday and Friday. He can still make the big chip in, and he can still hit an occasional spectacular shot. So I feared I would miss him on Saturday and Sunday. And an amazing thing happened. I didn't miss Tiger for 1 second on Saturday or Sunday. And you know I'm a lifelong golf fan. I was a golf fan before Tiger Woods. Listen, he took golf ratings to heights I could never have imagined. So I give you all that. But what a spectacular shootout this PGA Championship turned into on a very wet golf course that was yielding not just birdies, but eagles. It was a shootout, usually that you see in the John Deere Classic, and I loved it because I got to see the greatest players do the greatest things. But it was a harmonic convergence, I must admit, of the three biggest draws in golf outside of Tiger Woods, without Tiger Woods, because, number one, I know you aren't around a lot of golf courses, but every golf course I go to this summer when I've been on vacation, there are kids dressing like Ricky Fowler with the pastels and the wide brim pulled down low cap. And if you go in golf stores, Golfsmith, any of the big regional dealerships, you go in and there's a big Puma display right when you walk in the front door of Ricky Fowler apparel. Okay? So the kids like Ricky Fowler. I'm not sure the black kids like Ricky Fowler, but the white kids like Ricky Fowler. I think that's fair to say.
I'm 38 and I own a lot of Puma gear. I like to dress like Ricky.
Okay, fair. Good point. Fair point. Now, Phil Mickelson at age 44 is still a big draw for all golf fans.
Yes, he is.
He rivaled Tiger's popularity all along, and now, post-scandal, I think slowly but surely, maybe Phil has become, once again, the most beloved figure in golf. Mm-hmm. And he's still playing at an extremely high level.
Well,
at least 44.
At least he did this weekend.
Okay.
I mean, he wasn't.
But he did win the British Open last summer.
Wasn't in the top 10 this year.
Okay. He's had some problems, and he's had his off the field issues also. But then we also had Rory in the mix, and Rory is starting to look like the next Tiger Woods. So he's doing spectacular things with his driving length and with his putting that we used to see Tiger Woods do. So all of a sudden, if you give me those three, if you give me Ricky Fowler, Phil Mickelson, Rory McIlroy shooting it out for the PGA Championship, I'm good to go. So I'm watching. Then you give me a controversial finish in the dark. We can talk about that maybe later. But now I'm really good. I'm riveted. I was going to watch anyway, but I was going to miss Tiger Woods. And in this case, if you can give me this championship after championship, major after major, I'm good to go. That golf could flourish with these three always if they were always in contention.
I hear where you're coming from. I disagree with you. And I disagree with you because we're not talking about you. See, you love golf. You loved it before Tiger came along. You're going to love it long after he's gone. That's who you are. When you ain't watching it, you're playing it half the time for people that may want to know a little thing or two about the real Skip Bayless.
I'm attempting.
Okay, or they attempted to play, all right? But you have to understand that the Tiger element leaves you at a loss. I will say this to you. Ricky Fowler's been impressive. We all know what he's been able to do. He hasn't won this year, but, we know what he's been doing. Phil Mickelson, not Rory McIlroy, is your best hope for the post-Tiger Woods era, assuming that Tiger Woods never returns to the greatness we once saw him put on display before he's gone now 0 for 20 in his last 20 majors. In the end, here's the reason why. Because with Tiger, the number one nemesis you thought of, whether literally or figuratively because of how they talk to or about one another, some of the things were implied, whatever the case may be, you looked at Phil Mickelson as being that guy to rival Tiger. So as people who weren't avid golf followers got interested into the sport because of Tiger, Phil ultimately is somebody that they're going to attach to Tiger.
Sure.
See, the golf lovers, y'all ain't going anywhere. You like golf,
right.
You love golf, y'all going to watch golf. I'm not talking about y'all because golf is never going to dissipate in the mind's eye of the public to y'all anyway, to a Skip, to yourself, to people like me who never really was interested in golf until Tiger came along. What leaves me now outside of working, what leaves me or maintains my interest is somebody like Phil Mickelson, who I attached to Tiger because they were viewed as nemesis to me. I look at a guy like Rory McIlroy. You're the next best thing. You're a new generation.
Yep.
I don't look at you and Tiger. I look at Tiger as an elder statesman compared to Rory. It's a new era. It's a new day. You see what I'm saying? The third quickest to 4 majors. But other than Tiger and Nicklaus, we understand all of that. But when you see Phil, and Phil's not in the distance, you lose by 1 shot. It's the darkness. He comes to you and he says, I just ran out of gas. Oh, then you like, Phil's still there. Phil.
He almost chipped in for an eagle on 18 in the dark.
That's right. And so for me, that's how I look at it. I see Rory. I see his greatness. I see the next Tiger potentially based on what he's doing. But you got to remember, it wasn't just Tiger's dominance. It was the fact that he had a nemesis and he brought a different crowd. And to hold that different crowd, I think you got to have somebody that relates to the Tiger era.
Now you have said on this show before that you don't have much use for golf unless Tiger's a factor.
Well, before. I mean, I watch it now because I've grown fond of the sport but Tiger is responsible for that, is what I'm saying.
Clearly, Tiger brought many from the black community in as maybe casual golf fans, but I think a lot of them became hardcore golf fans.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of hardcore black golf fans out there, and I think they would have enjoyed yesterday, even without Tiger Woods. But you've made the case to me that, hey, without Tiger, you're kind of like...
I think you lose the minority audience, and I'm not just talking about black folks.
Okay, fine.
Because when I bring that into the equation, what I'm simply saying is that Tiger was the new breed. He was something different, and he was someone that gave you the feeling that we were all welcome to the game of golf. Because the fact of the matter is a lot of people outside of the white community didn't always feel like they were welcomed by the sport of golf. Tiger eradicated that. And I think because he's eradicated that, I think that helps the sport and those who've grown to love and appreciate and learn more about the sport, like myself over the last few years. We're not going to go away just because Tiger went away. But some will.
Okay.
Some will.
And then there's my mom, longtime golfer and golf fan, who became spoiled by Tiger Woods to the point that once Tiger began to fade, she's telling me, I'm not that interested in watching the Masters unless Tiger's in. You're not? It's the Masters?
Right.
You're not gonna... Nah, I'm a Tiger fan. That's my mom.
Right.
She texted me last night, and she said, I watched every bit of this PGA without Tiger Woods. And she said, I was amazed that I couldn't turn it off. Well, what does that tell you?
Yeah.
That it was just spectacular golf,
right.
even without Tiger Woods.
But you also have to look at what the newspaper's doing. I was reading Friday's New York Daily News, and it was talking about Lee Westwood and how he had shot, 6 under 65 first round. He's 0 for 66 in majors. Now it's 0 for 67.
Yep.
Why? Because Rory McIlroy was just a shot back. And it was clear, if Rory continues to play this way, Westwood and everybody else is not going to have a chance, because you're talking about Rory in the same breath that you're talking about Tiger. But you still see the Tiger connection, because you have somebody that you're mentioning. If Rory didn't win, if this wasn't his fourth, okay, and you didn't mention Tiger and Jack Nicklaus, it would be just another great golf weekend. It wouldn't resonate. But it's resonating because what he's doing is measurable historically. Mm-hmm. And as a result of that, it gets you thinking about Tiger. And if it gets you thinking about Tiger, those people that Tiger helped bring to the sport are going to pay attention, which means that the interest is not going to dissipate but so much.
Okay. Well, even though you said on Friday, you feel like Tiger is pretty much done. That was your word?
That's right.
For golf's sake, I hope you're wrong about that. Now, I don't think he's got any shot of breaking Jack's record. I've been on record with that for the last 2 years. But I want to see him bounce back for golf's sake.
I'm going to go and give you credit, because you talk about Butch Harmon. Now, we know what he's done for Ricky Fowler.
How about Phil Mickelson?
You said, and Phil Mickelson.
Okay.
You said Tiger may need to swallow ego, pride, etc., and go back to this guy. It's gotten to the point where it looks like that's Tiger's only hope.
It does.
It looks like that's Tiger's only hope.
I'm with you.
Back to golf course fashion. Are you solid black like Phil when you play like today, or are you going to be wearing all orange like Ricky?
On Sunday, I wear all black. It's my winning colors.
Is it?
Yeah.
How many have you won?
Dressing for a funeral.
The better question is, how many balls have I lost?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, that's true.
The New York Jets have two athletic quarterbacks in Geno Smith and backup Michael Vick, and apparently the Jets might use them both, with Vick in the wildcat formation. Rex Ryan said that he hasn't ruled out that possibility, and Michael Vick saying, quote, "We aren't going to say when it's going to happen, it's just going to happen." The Jets are considering the wildcat, Stephen A. Is this a good idea?
I personally don't like it. The Jets' offense has stunk the last 2 years. We all know that. Last year, they used the wildcat a league-high 38 times, Skip. 38 times they used the wildcat last year. We knew they should have used it a bit more when Tim Tebow was there, but that's a story for another day. In the end, even though Geno Smith claims he doesn't have much of a problem with it, and Michael Vick has been on the record saying there are situations, whether it's short yardage situations, red zone situations, third down situations, where he'd exercise it, and it's something that it's a wrinkle that they'll use sparingly. In the end, when you consider the durability issues that Michael Vick has had throughout his career, and you combine that with Geno Smith being as important to this team in terms of trying to decide what his future is going to be in New York, I don't like the idea of the Jets using that one bit. Certainly there's a place for it every now and then, very, very rarely. But you don't use it a league high 38 times. You shouldn't consider it on that level, no.
I am so with you. I'm going to go from you don't like it. I despise the whole concept of this. And I'll be the first to admit, I'm still a little raw over what happened to Tim Tebow in New York with Rex Ryan. I think Rex wrecked Tim Tebow's career. You may think I'm going too far here. But remember, Tebow was coming off a great run in Denver. Tebow was led to believe he would get a 50-50 shot at winning the starting quarterback job in New York over Mark Sanchez.
Okay.
And what happened? Rex fell back in love once again, and I don't know why, as a defensive coordinator type, that he sees this as pliable, but to have your quarterback split reps, it hurts both your quarterbacks. So he tried to weave in Tim Tebow as a little bit of a wildcat quarterback, and it helped to wreck the confidence of Mark Sanchez. I think you would agree with that. Wasn't that Sanchez's worst year by far?
Yes.
Okay. So why would you take young Geno and tell him, hey, Every once in a while, you're going to have to come completely off the field, unless we split you out as a decoy at receiver, but you're going to have to run off the field while he runs in and runs his kind of plays. Why would you tell Michael Vick you can only run with the ball? Why would you tell a guy with such a cannon of an arm that Michael Vick has? Listen, when he gets in rhythm, he can throw it with anybody. You know this.
Right.
Okay, and again, you got to protect him. He can't hang on to the ball too long and take shots in the brain again.
That's right.
Okay, but why would you do that to either of your quarterbacks? Now, Michael Vick publicly is going to endorse it because, he's in the beggars can't be choosers mode.
That's right.
He's like, okay, if that's all I can get, I'll try that. If that's what you want me to do, I'll do anything you want. Put me in, coach. Just give me a chance. And Gino, who still hasn't completely won the job or won over the fandom, is saying, okay, I'd be okay with that. Would Tom Brady be okay with that? Would Peyton Manning? Obviously they wouldn't. Would Drew Brees? Aaron Rodgers? Nobody wants to come off the field for a bunch of trick play package plays that your backup quarterback can run because he can run with the ball. It's a bad idea. It's the one place where I say Rex doesn't have a very good feel for running an offense.
Well, let's be clear. You got to hold Marty Mornhinweg accountable for that as well, if that indeed happens, because he's the former offensive coordinator in Philadelphia who used to coach Michael Vick, who's now in New York. And Michael Vick, in all likelihood, probably wouldn't be here if it were not for Marty Mornhinweg. A legitimate argument could be made that very few people know what Michael Vick is capable of doing, more so than Marty Mornhinweg. So to utilize him like that, to me, I would be very critical of Marty, because you've been around Vick long enough to know the durability issues that he has.
Yeah.
The more he's running the football, the more exposed he is to potential injury in that regard. And that would be my concern more so than anything else. And by the way, you did go out. You got Eric Decker. You got Jacoby Ford from Oakland. You still got Cumberland. You've got Curley. You acquired Chris Johnson, who was in Tennessee. You got Chris Ivory. You're supposed to have enough requisite, decent, viable weapons to refrain from engaging in such tactics. So I don't like it at all.
And I think Michael Vick is still good enough to be the starting quarterback, not the Wildcat quarterback, the starting quarterback of the New York Jets.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
Okay. So what's the problem? Why would you resort to
trying to give themselves options?
Yeah.
But I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't like it because Michael Vick has played all 16 games of an NFL season one time in his 14-year career in the NFL. Once. That's not good enough.
They say if you have two quarterbacks, you've got no quarterbacks. Is this something they want to juggle?
That's the oldest saw in all of football. I've heard that my whole life. And that's what they're thinking. We got two, so do we have none? You have to pick one and close your eyes and go with the one. I would pick Michael Vick. We'll see how it plays out. But you can't have it both ways. You can't say, I feel strongly both ways. Never in the history of quarterbacks have you seen rotating, juggling quarterbacks that really paid off. I can even go back to Tom Landry with Roger Staubach and Craig Morton. It never really works.
It's basketball now, and you might think being traded from the Cavaliers to the Timberwolves would upset Andrew Wiggins. After all, he can't play beside the best player in the world in LeBron James and goes from a title contender to a basement dweller. However, Kansas coach Bill Self recently recalled a conversation with his former player, saying this: when all this trade stuff started, I talked to Andrew, and Andrew told me, I hope I get traded. And I'm like, no, you don't. And he said, Coach, I do. It's better for me knowing my personality and what I need to do, to go somewhere where I'm forced to be something, as opposed to going in there where they're going to be patient with me and I'm going to be a piece. So, Skip, based on those comments you heard from Bill Self, what does that tell you about Andrew Wiggins?
Told me that maybe he'll be a better NBA player than I think he'll be. I was impressed with that reaction to his former coach. Again, we're trusting Bill Self on this. We haven't heard that straight from Andrew, but I know Bill, like him, believe in him, trust him.
Feel is mutual.
Yes. And in this case, we're going back several weeks to where the trade was just starting to be rumored. And Bill is saying that he told Andrew, no, you want to stay with this LeBron guy over here in Cleveland. Nope, Coach. I want to go make my own name in Minnesota. And Stephen A., I'm going to say it again, and I don't want to be too hard on the kid. I don't see NBA star in Andrew Wiggins, but I only got to see him one quote-unquote baby year at Kansas at age 18. And he was playing with a lot of very good young players, including Joel Embiid. but I saw wildly inconsistent. I saw 41 points at West Virginia. I saw 30 against Oklahoma State in the conference tournament. And against Oklahoma State at home, I saw 3. And at Texas, I saw 7. And against Stanford in the NCAA game, big game, biggest game of his life to date, Andrew Wiggins scored 4 points on 1 of 6 field goals. Really? That's going to be the first pick in the draft? I'm sorry, I can't buy into that. But I can buy into a quote in which his former coach is saying he wants to go show you that he can be the man in Minneapolis for the Timberwolves. I like that because clearly he was just going to be another piece to the puzzle at best if he had stayed in Cleveland with LeBron. So in this case, bully for him. Great quote and great outlook. And I give him a little more of a chance because I like the intangible.
Well, that's the reason why he was picked number 1 overall. He's not trying to fit in. He's trying to be the man, and he's willing to accept the responsibility that comes along with it. And the reason why I applaud his quote through Bill Self, of course, assuming it's absolutely accurate, which we're going to do, is because it's another way of him opening up about how insulting this whole process has been towards him.
Yep.
He's the number 1 overall pick in the NBA draft. And LeBron James decides to come back to Cleveland. Not that he in any way compares to LeBron, because he does not. But LeBron James comes to Cleveland, and all we hear is that, well, he's not going to be in Cleveland, and Cleveland's not going to want you because they want Kevin Love, and in order to get Kevin Love, they're going to have to give you up. And so he hasn't had any opportunity whatsoever to enjoy being the number 1 overall pick and a potentially marquee player in the future, because all he's been hearing is that you're not particularly wanted. And so he's saying, look, let them do what they're going to do. I'd rather go someplace where I'm wanted and people are going to be willing to hand me the ball and say, all right, show us what you got, rather than I got to fit in and work things out. Think about this. If he stays in Cleveland, it's not just LeBron being there. It's LeBron returning to the city. It's Kyrie Irving and the $90 million contract. It's Dion Waiters trying to prove that he's valuable and viable as well. It's all of this stuff going on. And you're the number 1 pick. You want to roll into town. I'm like, I am here. I'm ready to roll. Y'all ready to roll? That's not what's going on here. So he's saying, you know what, Cleveland, hurry up, get this over with. I'm interested in getting the hell out of here. Why should I want to be a part of this?
So is it possible that he still talks a bigger game than he'll be able to play in the NBA?
I believe he has a suspect handle and a streaky jump shot.
He does.
But his athleticism is off the charts.
It is.
And here's where he impresses me. He plays on both ends. He defends. They rave about his willingness as well as his ability to defend. And when you are a guy that has star potential and considered to have a tremendous upside, and it's not all predicated on your offensive prowess, I think that goes a long, long way towards validating who you are and what you bring to the table.
Does he have a good enough feel, even though he's still a baby in basketball terms? Does he have a good enough feel for playing the game of basketball?
No. Jabari Parker does.
No doubt. No doubt about it. And I still say Joel Embiid, if in fact his back issues can be alleviated, will be much better than any of those players.
No, I wouldn't say much better than Jabari Parker.
I think so.
Jabari Parker, to me, has an opportunity to be like Carmelo Anthony.
Wow, that's a big, bold statement.
It's interesting.
Jabari Parker is going to be big time. I like Jabari.
It's interesting that Andrew Wiggins sounds like he would almost rather leave where the stars are to build his own legacy, where LeBron left Cleveland to join stars to win a title. Somewhat reversed.
Well, Andrew's young. Maybe he'll find out that in about 5 years he'll be looking to join forces with some stars.
Maybe. But he's not running from the challenge and the spotlight.
And I love that.
That goes a long way. That reminds me years ago of when Allen Iverson was picked number 1 overall. There were a lot of people. I was covering high school sports, a few years earlier than that. And, in 1990, they got drafted in 1996. I was covering high school sports in 1993. I covered Stephon Marbury, who was a flat-out superstar on a prep level before going 1 year to Georgia Tech. But he came out of college same time as Allen Iverson. And Pat Croce and those boys said, have you spoken to this kid? have you seen this kid? We understand that Stephon Marbury is a big-time talent. But this dude right here named Allen Iverson, wait till you see this boy. And he was talking about attitude, not just skill.
And I'll be the first to say, I didn't love the idea of taking an under 6-foot player with the #1 pick in the draft.
Let me tell you something.
It worked.
They knew it. They knew it, and they got Allen Iverson there, and he was a showstopper. And the first time I met Allen Iverson was at the Chicago pre-draft camp. Prior to being drafted, he was like, let's get it started, baby. That's all he said. He said, let's get it started, baby. And it's before he's drafted. We ready to roll. And that's exactly how he came in. We had that kind of attitude. Andrew Wiggins thinks like that. We'll see.
For me, it was a good start. I mean, you have to start somewhere, and you have to set a foundation. Got my feet wet. Got my first preseason game under my belt. Now we got 3 more, and then head into the season.
Johnny did a nice job out there for his first time. The step from college to the NFL is huge, so it's a huge learning curve, but he seems to pick things up really fast, and I think he did a nice job in his first preseason game.
Johnny Manziel came off the bench in the second quarter Saturday night with 7 of 11 for 63 yards, no touchdowns but no picks. Also led the Browns in rushing, carrying the ball 6 times for 27 yards. Next up, the Redskins on Monday Night Football. And we welcome in our NFL analyst, Antonio Pierce, to the set. Did Manziel's performance warrant him getting the start Monday night?
You better give him reps with the first team. You better see him go up against those boys on the other side. On the other side, that's going to be starters in the National Football League. And you also better put him behind an offensive line that can protect him and wide receivers that can catch the ball. 7 for 11 should have been 9 for 11. There's 2 drops there. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, guys. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid because
I love this.
For a lot of reasons. I thought he went in there and he did what he was supposed to do. I thought Kyle Shanahan did an outstanding job as far as putting his offense that he was familiar with in college, making him comfortable. He didn't look like he wasn't uneasy about the situation at all. If anything, I think he seemed to want to take on a moment more than the other quarterback. And I would be concerned about that. And then the most important thing, every Browns player was off the bench, wasn't eating sunflower seeds. What were they doing? They were watching Johnny football. You just energized your team. You energized your city. If there's one team in the National Football League that needs all of that, it's that team.
Let me say this.
Uh-oh.
If we're talking popularity, it factor, impact with teammates like you just pointed out, there is no debate. Never was one. We understand that Brian Hoyer is not Johnny Manziel. So let's wipe that out of the equation. Let's not get caught up in skip mania. That's what I call it, skip mania. Okay?
I think it's Antonio mania.
It's skip mania. That's what I call it because you're the instigator, the provocateur of all of this. But we understand it's legitimate and it's valid. What I'm saying is, as a football player, strictly on what you saw on the field from Johnny Manziel, my position is I want to see you with that first team. And I want to see you against starters. And let's see what you do. I don't think there's enough of a difference. There's enough of a discrepancy that we saw. I think we saw Hoyer throw the football well. I thought we saw Johnny run the football well. Not to say that Johnny didn't have a couple of good passes because he did. But I want to see him start against the Redskins a week from tonight? I want to see that, and then we go from there because it's one preseason game. It's his very first preseason game. Let's pump the brakes. That's me.
Okay, but if you're the head coach, would you so much pump the brakes that you would not start him against the Redskins?
Not at all. I would definitely start him. I definitely would start him because to me, it should have never been a foregone conclusion that this was Hoyer's job. Remember, they went that route because they wanted to quell all the Johnny mania.
They did.
Because he was in Vegas, he was partying, they were uncomfortable with some of the things that they were seeing, the rolled up dollar bill in the bathroom, him looking a little bit inebriated on that little balloon, the swan. All of that stuff was making them uncomfortable, and they felt, because of public pressure, they felt they needed to remind him, you're a rookie, you're a backup, nothing here is going to be given to you. But based on the career of Brian Hoyer, with Johnny Football coming out of Texas A&M, there was no reason whatsoever to definitively say that this guy Hoyer or anybody else is your quarterback ahead of Johnny Football in Cleveland because nobody had the resume to warrant that.
What did Brian Hoyer do real quick? What did he do enough last year just to say you're going to give him the job?
Exactly, nothing.
I didn't see it. And again, look at some of his throws. There was a lot of high throws. You're talking about a veteran quarterback. And again, you're not dealing with the number twos. You're throwing to Josh Gordon. Those should have been completions.
Okay.
I am so with you on this. But let me ask you one other question before we go on.
Sure.
If you're the new head coach and the new general manager and the fairly new owner, are you concerned that you will pour gasoline on the Manziel mania fire if you give him a start on Monday Night Football against RG3?
I think we're beyond that point. I think that when you saw, even though it was just one preseason game, I think what you saw from the two quarterbacks warrants you saying, okay, let's see what he's got in this situation.
Okay.
I think it warrants that.
And I believe he has earned that start. And I believe he will seize the opportunity and seize this job once and for all. And Patton's on the record as saying, I would like to name a starter by the third preseason game. And as you well know, usually it's more of your dress rehearsal. You might play your ones, I don't know, would you play them for a half or a quarter and a half or whatever? So you would like to say, whoever our quarterback is, we want to go into this battle together in the third preseason game. So if you give Johnny the opportunity, I think he'll not just seize it, he'll put his hands around it and shake it like this, and there'll be no doubt. Because the kid I saw operating at a pretty high level with command of that offense. And remember, this is night and day from what he ran at Texas A&M. I've said from the start, high football IQ, and his poise and command of that offense, it was pretty impressive. Did he miss a couple throws? He did. Did Hoyer, was he wild high? Yes, he was wild high a couple times. But Brian Hoyer, he's always been pretty good, and that's what he'll always be. And you've been around quarterbacks where you just know he's a pretty good player. He's a quality backup quarterback to me. And in those two starts, he played in 3 games, got hurt in the third game. Yeah. But the two they were pretty good last year. Pretty good for a not very good team. But that's Brian Hoyer. He came up in New England in the Brady system, so he knows.
Let's be clear about Hoyer. Hoyer is known as an efficient decision maker. He comes across as a guy that's comfortable being behind center.
Sure.
He's not going to hurt you per se.
Nope.
He's not somebody that you look at and you question whether he belongs on the roster. But he doesn't have the it factor. And that's what this comes down to. And I hear where you're coming from, and you're not wrong. I'm simply saying it's one preseason game against the second unit. Josh Gordon, Miles Austin, those boys, they were out of the game. You know, Joe Thomas and those guys at left tackle, they were out of the game when Johnny came in. So we'll see what happens when they're playing with him Monday night.
Also, from a defensive standpoint, you're a coordinator. Your game plan is totally different with these two guys. You saw the plays that were ran for Johnny Football and Brian Hoyer. It's totally different. Again, I'd rather face a quarterback. I knew he was going to be at that 5 and 7 step plan. Then the quarterback, when I turn my back or I'm in coverage and he's running around making plays, and now we got to call our little plaster drill. I got to go find the nearest wide receiver, and I got to make a decision. Do I come up and make that tackle on the quarterback or do I stay receiver? Totally difficult to do as a defender in the National Football League. Difficult to plan against as a D coordinator.
Okay, question to you. I voiced this concern to Stephen A. earlier in the show. The first play of Johnny's second series, which was in the third quarter, I'm not sure if it was a call quarterback draw or if he just bolted because the pressure just overwhelmed him from both sides. But he shot straight up the middle, and he did not slide. He went mostly head first, and he got his bell rung a little bit. Not a lot, but he was shaking his head, and they did check him on the sideline to make sure everything worked out, and it did. Then after that, he got loose on the side, and he slid like an all-star baseball player, like a base stealer would slide, and it was beautiful to watch. But how much does it concern you that he ran into your old area with his head up?
Well, that's concerning, but what did he learn from it? That's what I'm more impressed by. The very next time he ran, he slid. Then the time after that, he ran out of bounds. Learn your lesson. Learn your lesson. Okay. I think the first 2 runs he figured out. Try to outrun the defensive end on the reads, on the little read zone play. Couldn't do it. Oh, I go down. Then he tries to, like you said, maybe it's a quarterback draw. I didn't think it was. I thought the pocket broke down around him, and he went back to college.
He did.
In the National Football League, you got to sit in that pocket 1 more second, 2 more seconds, and wait for the guy to get to the open.
But especially in the middle of the field, you have to get down fast. You cannot let middle linebackers have shots at you in the middle of the football field.
If I'm Johnny Manziel, same size, height, whatever you want to say, with Russell Wilson, I'm watching all his film. Probably the best job of any quarterback avoiding hits, sliding, getting down. It's not worth those extra 2 yards. It's not worth it. Michael Vick is learning, or still learning maybe. It's not worth it. It takes it. RG3 learned a couple years ago. It's not worth it. And I think the biggest learning lesson from that, he slid the next time.
He did.
Baseball slide, and then went out of bounds.
It's going to be important for Johnny to do that more and more earlier on because Russell Westbrook has gotten to the point. Where Russell Wilson.
Okay.
Right, Russell Wilson.
He could play seriously.
Yes, he could.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson has gotten to the point where guys almost lay off of him because you know what he's going to do. You know he's going to slide. You know he's not going to dive. You know that you're going to be penalized if you put your hands on him because he's consistent about doing what he's supposed to do. Whereas with Johnny, even if you like the Michael Vicks of the world, even when you slide, you still can end up getting popped occasionally because you expect them to dive. You anticipate that that's what they're going to do. And that's how Vick gets himself hurt or has gotten himself hurt sometimes in the past as well. Johnny Manziel has to make sure he doesn't do that. So it's good for him to establish good habits now.
So my bottom line takeaway from what I saw Saturday night, the Cleveland Browns will be a better football team and have a chance to win more games with Manziel starting from the start in Game 1. You agree?
I want to wait and see what he does with starters, Skip. That's what I keep telling you. I understand. If you're asking me, if I had to make an answer today, I would say I agree because of Hoyer. It's by default, not because of Johnny. I believe that in today's NFL, with the speed, the power, the agility of these players on the defensive side of the ball, it's incumbent upon a quarterback to be a dual threat, unless you're a Peyton Manning or a Tom Brady or a Drew Brees. You know, to me, Aaron Rodgers is a dual threat. Aaron Rodgers is just a lethal passer. Everybody forgets how athletic he is and how good he is at running the football as well. He's a dual threat, but those three aforementioned are not. I think,
and there are only three of those guys.
And there's only three of those guys. I think they're the only three that could get away with it. I think everybody else in the NFL needs to be a dual threat, and that's why I would pick Johnny over Hoyer. But that's the only reason. It's not because of anything Johnny has done yet.
Earlier, Antonio said he was impressed by Kyle Shanahan's game plan for Johnny Manziel. You weren't so
I
intrigued.
wasn't. I don't want to go too deep back into this, but Johnny didn't have called runs in college. He's the opposite of Tim Tebow. Johnny creates on his own out of the pocket. Occasionally they'll run a naked bootleg, but they didn't run any read option at Texas A&M. I can't remember any. So right away, Kyle Shanahan is running the read option on third and, like, what was it, short?
3rd and 1.
Yep. In that Terrence West kid, I like him. He's got talent, but he hasn't run a lot of that with Johnny. Johnny hadn't run a lot of it in his life, and they said their mesh point got all screwed up. And all of a sudden, Johnny winds up with the football, and about 5 Lions have already outflanked him, and it was going nowhere, and he ducks his head and just tries to stick it up in there. So, to me, I don't want to see much of that. I don't think he needs the read option. Tebow needed it. It was all he had. You know, he survived on the read option. And we've seen a few others. Maybe Robert Griffin can run the read option a little better because he's so fast down the field. Johnny's just elusive. That's all he is. And he's going to run on his own enough. I don't want to see him endangered where you call running plays for him.
Another thing I'll be concerned with, if Josh Gordon's suspension goes through and he's out for that long period of time, who is Johnny throwing the football to?
Miles Austin.
No,
you better not.
Please.
Well,
not counting out.
Please. Hey, that's my only point, and that's my only point. And I think that's what they need to consider.
Well, Nate Burleson, little Hawkins they picked up.
That's the only thing that will concern me because then you're going to have to rely more on the running game. I think that's why we saw the pistol offense. That's probably why Kyle Shanahan is playing with some other things, thinking, I might not have a receiver. I might have to run these little plays to pull those linebackers and suck those safeties and stuff, those guys in so I can have that bigger window to throw in.
Antonio, thanks for stopping by. Unless you want to hang out and talk about Rory.
Nah, I'm not a golfer. I like watching, but not enough insight.
Good for you.
I commute from Schenectady to Manhattan. It's about a 6-hour round trip, but it's cool. My family loves Schenectady, and I love books on tape. It's a lot of time to spend driving alone. On the other hand, Schenectady is really close to the highway, so...
Life is a long drive. Make sure your car is along for the ride. Mobile Super Motor Oil is formulated to help prevent sludge and protect against wear. Mobile Super for long engine life.
You know, to be the face of golf, or one of the faces of golf, is it's a big responsibility. But at the same time, I feel like I'm up to the task of handling it well. And yeah, I mean. You know, as I said at the start, at 25 years of age, I didn't think I'd be in this position. So I'm trying to just take it day by day and try and take every victory like this in my stride and keep going forward, like I said at the Open, and I'll try and continue to do that. But, as I said, it's a great position to be in, and I definitely don't have a problem with being one of the faces, or if not the face of golf.
Rory McIlroy is making it harder and harder not to compare him to Tiger Woods. The star from Northern Ireland won the PGA Championship in dramatic fashion, his third consecutive tournament win and back-to-back major victories. He also becomes just the third golfer to win his fourth major by the age of 25, joining Jack Nicklaus and Tiger Woods. We asked you earlier in the show if Rory right now is as good as Tiger in his prime, and the results are in, and they are definitive. No, with 80.6% to yes at 19.4. Stephen A, did our viewers get that one right?
I believe they did. And the reason I think they did, Skip Bayless, is because Rory has not had to endure what Tiger had to endure. Coming into the sport, basically carrying the sport on your back, transcending the sport in a certain way, the way that Tiger did in terms of, just essentially ingratiating himself with the world. Being in a situation where you're that dude. That's Tiger Woods. That was Tiger Woods. And then we saw how young he was. We saw what he was accomplishing. We saw how minorities and others got involved in the sport. And all of a sudden, he wasn't just a golfer any longer. He was a transcendent figure with expectations heaped on his shoulders that have never been heaped on the shoulders of a Rory McIlroy. Rory can play. His mid-range game, the way he does off the tee, his putting game, whatever it takes, he seems to find a way at this particular moment in time to get it done. But if you recall, there was a time when he went through a slump, whether it was because of changing clubs, whether it was because of issues with the coach, maybe it's because, if I remember correctly, I don't know if he was in court or not, just refresh my memory on that. I'm just talking about just some problems with his team. Obviously he was engaged, called off his engagement, but that was nothing compared to what Tiger had to go through. And when he was going through that level of adversity, he had fallen off the map a little bit for about a year or so before he comes back into the scene. So when I look at Rory, I say to myself, look, he's a bad boy. He's only 25. He's got 4 majors. You get mentioned in the same breath as Tiger Woods and Jack Nicklaus. You deserve for people to ask that question. I got to look at you legitimately and say, you're no joke. You're the real deal. But at the same time, are you what Tiger was? I need to see more from you, more of what I'm seeing right now over a longer period before I'm willing to give you that.
Okay, what if we take out of the equation what Tiger had to prove sort of off the golf course? What if we take it out and we just do stats versus stats? We just do performance versus
Then what I would say to you is that he still needs to do more of what he's doing.
Yep.
But if we're just taking, like, let's say, for example, the year that he's having, is it comparable to Tiger's best years? Sure.
It is, especially if he could finish off the slam, if he could start doing the Rory slam the way Tiger did the Tiger slam, remember in 2000, 2001, where he goes U.S., British, PGA, and then the next year won at Augusta, won the Masters again. So he'd won 4 in a row, and it was called the quote-unquote Tiger slam. Well, could Rory continue this dominance into next year and win the Masters and the U.S. Open? Well, like you said, let's see before we leap to that conclusion.
Right, that's all I'm saying.
Okay, this is where I draw the line on Rory. I'm not sure, I'm not convinced he will ever be as mentally tough as Tiger was during his glory days in that 2000, 2001 period. I've never seen anything like that even in the Nicklaus years when Nicklaus was dominant. He blew golf away. Golf was afraid of Tiger Woods. Everybody cowered in Tiger's shadow. And I don't think they cower yet in Rory's shadow, even though I can show you that just in pure performance, Rory's right there with Tiger because of the way he's doing it. Because Tiger was never this straight off the tee. Rory is crushing the ball. You play so you can appreciate this. I was watching yesterday. He is launching moonshots, and he's only like 5'8" or 9. He's a little guy by most human standards. He is creaming the golf ball in ways I've never seen it creamed consistently straight, where he just looks down at a little point on the fairway and says, I got this. Boom. And there's another moonshot that he is flying the ball 305, 310 yards. He averaged, and he had the longest driving distance through the PGA at 315. So he's he averaged 315 off the tee as he won the PGA.
And he doesn't look like he's hitting it as hard as Tiger used to. When Tiger hit it hard, his whole body...
Yeah, I would agree. It was more spectacular to
Yeah.
watch Tiger almost like come out of his shoes. But Tiger was capable of this way and that way, and he's still capable, but he was the greatest scrambler I've ever seen. Out of the woods, it is like one thing after another. But in this case, the reason Rory has had such a long climb back to dominance is I cannot forget what happened in 2011 at the Masters. Now, remember, he should have 5 of these things right now. He had a 4-shot lead, and he was just a kid then, but he had a 4-shot lead going into Sunday. He had a 1-shot lead standing on the 10th tee going to the back 9 at Augusta National on Sunday of the Masters. And what happened? He triple bogeyed number 10, and it took him a long time to climb out of the psychological hell he found himself in at that point in his career.
Well, again, if you're going to bring that up, that's one of the reasons why you can't sit there and say he's Tiger.
That's what I'm saying. Okay, on pure performance, on the ability to strike the golf ball and to putt the golf ball, all of his short game, all his wedge play, he's right there with the Tiger I remember. But in mental toughness and mental emotional dominance, when Tiger set foot on the golf course, I just took one look at him wearing red on Sunday, and I thought, uh-oh, he's going to win this one. He just walked like with the shoulders back and the chest out like, I got this. With Rory yesterday, he was coming apart. He starts biting his left lip. He starts doing this, and you can just see he had his C-plus game yesterday. But his mental toughness is growing because off his C-plus, he had a 1-shot lead to start yesterday. He blew it. He fell 2 behind 2 really good players, 2 Butch Harmon players. And Henrik Stenson was above him for a while also. Right. These are 3 very good players. And what happened? He gathered himself. I thought the shot he hit on 10, I don't want to get too golfy here, but I thought he missed that. I thought that was a great miss. It was like a tournament-turning miss because he came off it a little bit, actually cut it a little bit.
I'm looking at it right now.
And it curves with the sort of the swale of the fairway going into the green, and all of a sudden it winds up, 7 feet away for an eagle?
Right.
Well, that turned the whole tournament around. But I got to tell you.
That was that shot you're talking about, that was like 15 shots. I think he said it was about 15 feet left of where he was aiming.
Okay, well, there you go.
And about 30 feet lower than what he was looking to hit.
It was what you call a great miss. But what happened to Ricky Fowler down the stretch? On the back 9, I think Ricky Fowler shot even par. Not good enough to win the golf tournament. Right. And I've also, don't want to get too deep on Ricky Fowler here, but even though he has gone to Butch Harmon, I'm not sure Ricky has the mental toughness to get through and win a major championship. If he keeps coming this close, one of these times he'll back into one. He'll just win because he keeps being right there when it's time.
But you can get close and close and close, and it's one thing to do it once or twice. But when you've been so close so many times and you come up short, there is the hazard or the potential hazard of getting demoralized where you go in the other direction.
Okay,
you don't finally get over the hump.
Maybe so, but he has had a great year of coming close.
Yes, he has.
A great year. But does he have that thing, that it factor?
We don't know.
Thing, unless somebody gifts it to him and hands it to him. In this case, Rory was not handed this one. He won with his C-plus game because down the stretch, he was really good. And even though he pushed Phil and Ricky to let him play up in the darkness on 18, hey, he almost hit his tee shot into the water on 18. Wouldn't that have been a story in the dark? And then I think he hit a 6-iron up into the front bunker, which was not a great shot. And then he had to go down in the darkness of the bunker, and he said he couldn't even see. He had no depth perception. He just said, I thought I would just gouge it out, hope I could get it on the putting surface, which he did. 33 feet short of the cup. And then that was a great 2-putt in the dark to win the championship. So I'm giving him this one because he went out and seized it and won it again.
That doesn't make him Tiger.
No, it doesn't make him Tiger, but he has the makings of Tiger Woods. Yeah. He has the makings.
He has the makings, but we're not there yet.
And I got to say, and you brought it up, I'm sorry, it is no coincidence after he broke off his engagement.
Yes.
What he has done. He's won 4 out of 8 tournaments. He's won 3 in a row, including the one in Akron, which is a pretty big regular season golf tournament, the Bridgestone. It's a big deal. It's a big, it's a high quality field. So to win 3 in a row to end the season, wow, that's pretty good.
And Ricky Fowler, only 25 as well, but he's probably already getting the label best player to have never won a major, even at that young age.
At that young of age, that's not fair.
Yeah, but what did he do on the back 9? You got to create some electricity, and he created none. He hit some bad shots.
Maybe Rory showed him the way.
Maybe.
Only 25.
Yep.
According to a Slovakian website, the Indiana Pacers offered to trade Roy Hibbert and Chris Copeland to the Suns in exchange for Goran Dragic. Dragic told the website that Indiana would also send money Phoenix's way, but they did not accept the offer. So, Stephen A., what exactly is Roy Hibbert worth nowadays?
Well, let me say this. Based on what we saw last year, there's no way in hell he's worth $14.8 million, which is what he's getting paid for this upcoming season. Has a player option after next year. After this upcoming season, it's going to pay him about $15.5 million in the final year of his deal. Roy Hibbert is 7'2". Roy Hibbert can play some defense. He can be incredibly formidable. Who knows what on earth happened to him in the latter part of last year, and particularly the playoffs. It was an epic collapse. We haven't seen anything like that in quite some time. I'm talking about a 7'2" dude who gets the ball 5 feet away from the basket and went scoreless on 4 different postseason occurrences.
Yep.
That is unconscionable. I don't want to knock Roy because I believe in him as a defensive player. Offensively, he's considerably raw. If you're the Phoenix Suns, you've got cap space, so plausibly you could do something because even though Roy's at 14.8 and Chris Copeland's at 3.1, Goran Dragic's is 7.5, there would be close to about an $11 million discrepancy, but Phoenix could afford it, and it would make them formidable because you'd have a legitimate big man to clog up the middle, and you could do some things, some of the other parts that they have, especially when, you've got issues involving Eric Bledsoe. But in the end, I just don't know what's going to happen right now. Anything's possible with the Indiana Pacers. Roy Hibbert, for the right team, could be worth a lot with the right coaching, the right pieces around him, because a legitimate argument could be made that the system Indiana has in place doesn't cater to his best assets in terms of the personnel around him. If he were playing with the Spurs, what could they do when you got Popovich coaching and you've got Tim Duncan as a power forward to play alongside? If he were playing in Miami and Chris Bosh could be your power forward or whatever the case, how formidable would he be? If he were playing in New York with Melo, being able to be put at the 3 with an Amari being at your 4, because Amari, you're not looking to him for defense but offense, all right? And you can sandwich a Roy Hibbert with 2 offensive-minded guys where your lone responsibility is defense. Don't even look for the ball. When you score, it's going to be by accident. All of a sudden, he's worth something more to teams like that. But if you're a team like Indiana that needs an offensive contribution from him, especially now with Paul George out and Lance Stevenson gone, then I think that his skill set has shown you that he's not worth nearly the money he's getting paid.
Okay, if you're Phoenix, would you have done that reported deal? It's from Dragic. You wouldn't have done it. Straight up for, it'd be for Chris Copeland and for Roy.
The way they play ball in the West, no.
No,
because he can't get up and down the floor the way you need him to, so he'd be rendered a non-factor.
For me, that would have been a laughable deal. If I'm Phoenix, I wouldn't have even thought 2 seconds about that deal. I would not have done it. So, to me, what did you say Roy makes now?
14.8.
14.8. So almost $15 million. Given that salary, what is he worth on the open market? I say 0. And I like Roy personally a lot. But I say 0 on the open market. Who would want to pay that for what you're going to get back? What did we just see from Roy? Look, he is a nice young man, but he might be a little too nice. He is a very smart young man, but he might be a little too smart for his own good because he sort of outthinks himself. He thinks too much. But I look at a 7'2", 2-time All-Star in Roy Hibbert, and I look at over the last 2 years, he's averaged about 11 3 points, 7.5 boards, not enough for that kind of size, as we often talk about. 2.4 blocks a game, nothing to sneeze at. 2 years ago, he was second in the league, Dewey Baca, in block shots, nothing to sneeze at. But still, do you want him on your basketball team? I'm not sure if I do. I'm not sure.
I think in the game of basketball, a lot is contingent upon personnel surrounding you. Again, on certain teams, I do think that he's very, very valuable.
At $15 million?
Well, what I mean by that, in today's market, NBA economy, I'm sorry, there's a whole bunch of people that's getting paid money they shouldn't be getting paid. But what I'm saying to you is that when I look at, if you are a team devoid of any kind of defensive presence, and you are particularly within the Eastern Conference, then you need a Roy Hibbert if you have the offensive pieces around you, because then he can focus on just defense. Offensively, he's raw. I don't think he's worth $5 offensively. But defensively, I do believe he has the potential to be worth those millions, because at 7'2", and a guy who's capable of blocking shots, it was an aberration what we saw last year. It's not the norm. He's no Serge Ibaka, because Serge Ibaka has the uncanny ability to block shots, but also run the floor, be agile, be athletic, have a motor. That's not Roy Hibbert. But in the Eastern Conference, if you've got offensive pieces around him and he doesn't have to focus on anything but defense, I think that Roy Hibbert is worth a lot.
Would you want his mindset in your locker room? Because there were reports that he was quoted a couple times as pointing fingers at some of his other teammates.
Well, he was pointing fingers at guys because he was holding them accountable for not throwing the ball to him, for being selfish or whatever. He's not a selfish guy. Roy Hibbert's a good guy. He's not selfish. He's somebody that works hard. He's somebody that wants to do things right. And when you got guys that are coming across being about themselves and not about the team, or paying too much attention to their stats and not the bottom line, which is wins and losses, Roy Hibbert is the kind of guy that felt the need to call you out. I have no problem with it. The problem was once he did it, then he went out and played like
he didn't back it up.
It was horrible.
Yeah, it was horrible.
And that's the problem.
Okay, and just for those who might have let this slip through the cracks, Goran Dragic made third-team All-NBA last year.
He can ball.
He was voted the most improved NBA player last year. He averaged 20 a game and 6 assists.
Yeah, but it's not. But any consideration that the Phoenix Suns are given towards moving him, and I'm not saying I know that for sure because I haven't called them about it, but you have to understand that Goran's going to be looking for his payday, because next year is the last year of his deal. Just like you had Eric Bledsoe right now looking for his deal. And if Eric Bledsoe is in a position to ask for max dollars anywhere in the range of 4 years to $63 million to a 5-year deal around $80 million, if he's even in a position to ask for something like that, what is Goran Dragic going to be asking for in light of the kind of year he's had and he's coming off of?
Now, would I like to see Goran Dragic for the Pacers' sake to see him as I would. He'd be just what the doctor ordered.
Well, he would have been what the doctor ordered with a healthy squad.
I know. Yeah.
Not now. Don't matter now.
A federal judge has ruled that college athletes can share in the billions of dollars generated from broadcast and other media contracts, though the NCAA has announced it will appeal the judge's decision. Ed O'Banna said this morning on Mike and Mike that this ruling is just the tip of the iceberg.
I thought what they gave me at the time when I was in school was, in my opinion, what I took out of it, the bare minimum. I've said before that, I went to class, I was there to play basketball and that sort of thing, and I did the bare minimum. I think the NCAA did the bare minimum. I think there are a lot of students, or a lot of athletes, I should say, college athletes are getting by on the bare minimum. I think there's a lot of billions of dollars are being made, and these rules that are in place have been in place for like 100 years and haven't been changed when it comes to respect to the money. So times have changed, the economy has changed. The game has changed, and I think these rules need to change.
All right, so now that the NCAA cannot prevent the sharing of revenue with athletes, does this, in effect, mean the end of the NCAA?
Absolutely not. I wish, but absolutely not. And Stephen A., as you know, I've long been a proponent of paying college athletes, especially the football and the basketball players, whatever they're worth on the open market, which is more and more and more, and way, way more than they are paid right now with their scholarships, their room, board, and tuition. In a way, I feel like the NCAA won this lawsuit, even though they quote-unquote lost. If I'm reading this correctly, what this judge ruled is that the max a player can make is $20,000 to be paid to him after he's gone, after he's out of school, after he has left school. That would be a maximum of $5,000 a year for 4 years. And this is only for those whose schools maximize the use of their name and their likeness. Not sure how you even differentiate. But in this case, the top stars in college, let's do football, after they're finished, their 4 years of eligibility, then their school has to write them a check for $20,000, only $20,000. Johnny Manziel, what would have happened once he leaves Texas A&M? You say, hey, Johnny, we owe you $20,000. Well, he'd laugh, wouldn't he? $20,000, which is why he was signing memorabilia as fast as he could sign it, right? Again, breaking the rules because the rules are the rules. But the spirit of the rules, in our view, is that we're kind of okay with that because they deserve whatever they can make. And Johnny decided, I deserve a little more because Texas A&M is marketing me like crazy. And Texas A&M still, to me, owes Johnny for years and years for what he did to put them back on the national map. But in this case, $20,000 is all you're going to get. That's the cap. That's the max. I would think that these power conference schools would consider that a victory, right?
Let me say this. The cap is $5,000. I'm not sure it's definitive that they have to wait. It says here the NCAA also cannot stop schools from putting that money into a trust fund to be held until an athlete's eligibility ends or he graduates, whichever happens first. But it does. I'm not sure if I'm reading it correctly. It doesn't mandate that you have to wait until the athlete finishes eligibility or he graduates. It doesn't mandate that, according to what I'm reading. All I'm saying to you is this. I agree with you that the NCAA got off because I think that the damages could have been more punitive. I think they could have suffered more. I don't think that the judge came down as hard against them as everybody's trying to come across. But I do agree with Ed O'Bannon when he says this is just the tip of the iceberg.
I hope so.
I definitely believe that. You got to crawl before you walk. Essentially what they're acknowledging is that the name, the likenesses, the imagery of these athletes have been exploited, and it's pretty much been criminal to violate that by not allowing them to have compensation. Even though it was a different issue involving Chris Webber, obviously far more complicated.
Yep.
Do we have those problems with Chris Webber? If he was able to profit off of his name, his imagery, his likeness? Of course not. Terrell Pryor.
During his years in school,
exactly,
right?
Exactly, during his years in school.
Yeah.
Why? Because they're trying to get money. They're trying to get money. Shabazz Napier complaining about food and all of that stuff. Yeah. They had to address that problem. Terrell Pryor, selling paraphernalia, whatever the case is, at the tattoo parlor and stuff like that. Does that happen? No. There's a list. There's a host of guys. Johnny Football.
Okay, but maybe it does happen. Maybe it still happens because they're thinking, I can't touch that money until I'm finished.
But that's what I'm saying to you. So that's why I'm saying I'm not sure if it's finite, if it's definitive, that it's money that they cannot touch while they're in school.
That's the drift I got from reading what you read.
I feel you. And
even if you put it in a trust fund, you
still can't touch it.
You can't touch it until you're out.
But it says here it cannot stop the school from putting it into a trust fund or giving it to them once they graduate. It doesn't mandate that they absolutely must wait until they're finished their eligibility or they graduate. That's all I'm saying.
But the judge gave the universities the right to say we still don't pay college football and basketball players, right? Because there's no money exchanging hands until they're gone, maybe on to pro
but if you
basketball.
did that, then you've opened the door for the athlete then to come and say, excuse me, why do we have to wait? Why can't I get that money now? Whereas before, there was no money to be gotten at all because you had the Mark Emmets of the world and others saying, we give you a scholarship. We think that more than does the trick. And they keep bringing up. See, this is what I want, and that's why I think this is a step in the right direction. They keep bringing up, the NCAA keep bringing up how many athletes benefit. How many folks on scholarship benefit, how the institutions themselves benefit. But they keep ignoring the big elephant in the room, and that is the revenue generators. How are they really benefiting? See, that's the real issue here. They don't want to draw a distinction between revenue generators and those who don't, which is why we like the fact that the SEC, the five big conferences, is different from everybody else.
Can I take a moment to applaud Ed O'Bannon for the years, the hundreds, if not thousands of hours he put into this case?
Right.
And again, I'm not sure what he was personally getting out of it.
Nothing.
Something.
He spoke on Mike and Mike this morning. He said absolutely nothing. He hasn't gotten a dime off of it, but he just thought it was the right thing to do.
Okay, God bless him. But he took it as far as he could take it.
Yes.
Now, tip of the iceberg has been revealed. You get paid post years in school for the use of your image, your likeness, your name.
Okay.
20 grand max. That's about that much of a tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Okay, where's the next Ed O'Bannon? Is there another one out there? Is somebody else going to file a new lawsuit and keep pushing? Will the Northwestern players, with their attempts to unionize, will that help?
I think what you'll see is pressure from the outside to try and infiltrate college sports by going the route of the players having some form, I don't want to use the word unionization, but they have to have some form of representation. I think what this has opened up is the fact that the student athlete has been exploited. The student athlete has been taken advantage of. And if grown men and grown adults can have representation, why can't kids? And I think that's the next step, because once there's representation for the student athlete, don't worry about this.
Okay.
All of this stuff is going to be dealt with.
Okay, I'm going to conclude this by reiterating what I wrote for ESPN.com 2-3 weeks ago. There are alums at nearly every power school who are just itching to pay players to come to their school and play football or basketball for them, for their bragging rights. And you have kids who make nothing, next to nothing. So is it not America that if there's supply and demand, okay, there's supply because here's the money. They have the money that they want to spend it. They want to give it to the kids. They're happy to give it to the kids, but the NCAA rules won't allow them. Some judge would say that's un-American to me, because that's a restraint of trade. That's free market economy.
I predict one day we'll see that issue taken in the Supreme Court.
Thank you.
To the Supreme Court of the United States of America. It will get to that point someday.
The ratings are in. The PGA Championship overnight rating of 6.0 yesterday is up 36% from last year when Jason Duffner won. It's also the highest rating for the tournament since 2009 when Y.E. Yang overtook Tiger Woods that year. The rating was 7.5. I just watched an HBO special on how golf is dying in front of our eyes. What do these ratings tell you about the current state of golf?
There's hope. But hope is a harmonic convergence at the top of the leaderboard between a Rory, a Phil, and a Ricky. And that's what we had yesterday in a birdie-eagle type shootout in a major championship. These are very impressive numbers because they almost doubled the U.S. Open ratings this year. And again, that's Martin Keimer from Germany dominating the field. And they were in the ballpark with this year's Masters. You know, we don't have Tiger as a big factor when Bubba, remember, finally beat Jordan Spieth in that one. But look, if we get to next year's Masters, and for whatever reason Tiger's still struggling with his back and he misses the cut at Augusta National, and as we get to the back nine on Sunday, we have Rory and Phil and Ricky at the top of the leaderboard, hey, I'm watching because everybody's going to be watching. And those ratings would be Tiger-like ratings to me. But what are the odds that those three are going to be at the top? Because I made the case to start the show. Right now, without Tiger, I think those are the three biggest draws in the game. I think. You might want to put Bubba in there. I don't personally. He doesn't do a lot for me personally. Those other three guys are huge draws. So if you give me that, and you give me that at the U.S. Open and the British Open and next year's PGA, I'm good to go. What are the odds we'll get those three at the top of the leaderboard again?
Answer me this question. What would the ratings have been, despite the numbers that we're seeing right here? 36% increase from last year? Highest in the last 5 years? What are the ratings if Tiger makes the cut and he's a player yesterday? That's really the question. So you're comparing it to that.
He was in the mix with those three?
Exactly. I mean,
we'll take it up another notch.
Take it up another notch, and that's what I'm saying. And so in the end, again, golf is going to survive. Golf is going to continue to prosper because the people who support the sport of golf are not going anywhere. The question is that niche following, those people that otherwise didn't pay attention to golf because of Tiger, are they going to pay attention now because of Rory and Phil and Fowler? Is that going to happen? That's the question. Do I think there's a chance? Yeah. Do I think there's hope? Absolutely. But it's not like golf is going to die without Tiger.
I don't know. A lot of people thought it was dying. You just said you watched the special.
I think they thought that because so much has been placed on the shoulders of Tiger. But what they're not paying attention to, that's only as it pertains to those who otherwise were not watching the sport. Nobody believes that anybody who loved the sport of golf is going to be affected by Tiger not being there. If you love golf, you appreciate it for what it is, and you're going to watch according to that. But if you just watched golf because of Tiger, then you're not going to have the same level of appreciation, and you can wait for the highlights on SportsCenter.
Okay, but how about those people who only watch because of Tiger? Do you think they got pulled in by yesterday?
No.
Not at all? Because they wouldn't even give it a chance in the first place?
I don't think they were watching yesterday.
We asked Antonio Pierce. He said if Tiger was playing, he'd watch, but he didn't even tune in.
But he's not a golf fan at all.
But that's
so
what
that's
I'm
fine.
saying.
That's fine.
But that's what I'm talking about.
Okay, well,
because,
that's, yeah.
This is
that's
separate
the next level
well,
of
listen. People who are transcendent figures, what's the word? What does transcendent mean? I mean, the fact is that it's people that otherwise would have nothing to do with your sport. But they watch it because of you. There are people, the NBA used Michael Jordan to globalize its brand. You used Michael Jordan. You used the Olympics in Barcelona. You used those elements to globalize a brand that otherwise had not been globalized because people did not particularly care for the sport of basketball to that level. But all of a sudden, I want to be like Mike. And Barcelona came in, and you couldn't get enough of it. And now the NBA has successfully globalized this brand.
Okay, so sum this up. Are you surprised by these numbers?
A little, but not too much.
I'm not surprised at all. But again, you just maxed out your draw without Tiger Woods.
I expected an increase. I didn't expect a 36% increase last year.
The thing about Tiger Woods, when he started playing so well, not only did people want to watch golf, they wanted to play golf. And according to that Real Sports special
I am Tiger Woods.
They said a golf course now in the United States closes every 48 hours.
Wow.
So maybe Rory can provide a spark. Phil Mickelson earned a spot on the Ryder Cup team after his performance yesterday, but we still don't know if Tiger Woods will join the team. According to team captain Tom Watson, that decision is up to Tiger and how he assesses himself. Watson said he brings a lot to the team and would be a fool not to consider him. Stephen A., should it be Tiger's call?
No disrespect, but I think I think Watson's a fool for considering Tiger Woods. I mean, that's just the way I look at it right now. Let's call it what it is. Tiger Woods has been awful. And he's not just been awful in terms of playing. He's been awful in terms of his health. His back, I mean, you got a different kind of back injury that took place. And by the way, he revealed that he had some problems in the driving range, which is what contributed. He tried to work through it.
On Friday.
On Friday. And so as a result, he tried to work through it, didn't work out. In some people's eyes, that's an excuse. Not mine, because he's Tiger Woods. And I understand how great this man is going to go down as one of the all-time greatest golfers in the history of the sport. We all know that. But we're talking about what we're seeing now. We're talking about what we've been seeing. This is the worst year that he's experienced. I mean, when you consider, he didn't even finish 2 tournaments. He didn't make the cut twice. The kind of problems that he's having, no, it's unacceptable. And when you consider the fact that the Ryder Cup, what the Ryder Cup is, what it means, outside of 2008, the only time you won was in 1999. Maybe you're accustomed to getting stomped by the Europeans, and that's why it's not a big deal. I don't know. But in the end, what I will tell you is this. Tiger Woods, the way that he has been playing, has regressed. He is a shell of himself. And it sends the wrong message to have him included in the Ryder Cup. Now, you may not want to disrespect him by calling him and telling him you're making that decision, even though Watson has given indications that he could very well do that. In my opinion, Tiger Woods needs to pick up the phone and take folks off the hook and say simply, I am not worthy of being in the Ryder Cup this year, because he's not.
Okay, I respect that take from Tiger's perspective. Now I'm going to talk about Tom Watson's perspective, or my perspective. If I'm coaching the Ryder Cup team, I want Tiger Woods on my team. If he is 100% healthy by the time the Ryder Cup comes along, and he said he was pain-free on Thursday at the PGA. Remember that? But then we got into the issue of, he said, well, this was his sacrum that he hurt when he sort of stumbled backward into the trap and came down full force on his left foot in the bottom of the sand trap, or the bunker. Remember the fairway bunker? Okay, that's a whole nother issue. He said that his chiropractor, his physio as he calls him, can work that part out. but it wasn't worked out by Friday at the PGA. I guess on Thursday, I don't know if it was bothering him at all, but by Friday, he was limping through the back nine on Friday.
Right.
Okay. If he deems himself 100% healthy by the time the Ryder Cup rolls around, and he wants to play, I want him on my team on career achievement, on legacy, on what you love to call it factor, on just presence. I want him to be a leader in my clubhouse, so to speak, because Tiger has never been a leader for our Ryder Cup team, because he's always been the best player, and he didn't want to pair up with other players because he wanted to beat their behinds when it really mattered, which is in the major championships. So in this case, I want him to be more of a presence, more of a leader, because they all look up to him. And you don't think the European team would be more afraid of us with Tiger on our team than off? I do. I'm sorry.
Let me tell you something right now. I think the only reason the Europeans aren't laughing is because they have such respect for the greatness that was Tiger Woods. This is a man, 2014 has been the worst of his career. 8 tournaments worldwide, withdrawing from 2, missing the cut on 2 others, played just 4 events prior to March 31st back surgery, came back, had to back out of the Bridgestone Invitational August 3rd due to a different back issue. Excuse me, it's the Ryder Cup. I'm not interested in seeing you kneel over. You can't stand up straight. You can't go. I mean, look, it's the right.
What if he says he's okay?
He always says he's okay. He always says he's okay, and then the tournament starts, and day 1 or 2 comes. Yeah. If it were anybody else, we'd be sitting there saying excuses, excuses, excuses. Now, please don't get me wrong. In no way am I bringing into question the legitimacy of Tiger Woods' health issues. I'm not questioning its veracity, its authenticity, nothing like that. Okay. I'm simply saying it's gotten old. That's all I mean. You're a Cowboys fan, all right? You saw the Tony Romo.
I thought we were going to get through a whole show without bringing them up.
Get the Cowboys then. You could be a Johnny Manziel fan. You could be and it doesn't matter what. If it's your team and it's one issue after another health-wise, you're looking at them like, could you please just go away until you get healthy and then come back? Why are you here? If Tiger Woods took a year off, he could still come back. It's not like you in college and you're going to lose a year's eligibility or something like that. They don't give you an injury waiver or whatever the case may be. You can come back when you're healthy. You keep coming back telling us you're healthy, and you keep proving you're not. Enough. This is the Ryder Cup, man. It's the Ryder Cup. Nobody wants to see this. When Rory and everybody else participate, you don't want to sit there and get distracted with storylines. Tiger Woods back again.
I'm going to remind you again. Look, I've told you again and again, when we look at major championships since he won in 2008,
all right,
he's a shell of himself. Last year, he was the PGA Player of the Year. Last year, he won 6 times.
So what?
Well, so what?
The Ryder Cup
on the Ryder Cup team.
The Ryder Cup was last year. The Ryder Cup is this year now. What has he done this year? What has he done this year?
He had back surgery.
Right,
March
exactly.
31st.
And nobody's saying he's a scrub. What we're saying
I think you're saying he's a scrub.
Not at all. I'm saying he hasn't looked the part, in large part because of his health. Go away. Get healthy. Go away and get healthy.
So if you're Tom Watson, you just say, go away.
No. Tiger, I need you to go get healthy. We need to do it without you this year. Nothing but respect and love for you. But we need somebody healthy. Please go get healthy.
Okay.
Way to soften the blow. Tom Watson will make his 3 at-large picks on September 2nd. We'll find out soon enough if Tiger Woods will be amongst them. For Skip Bayless,
he shouldn't be.
Smith, I'm Todd Grisham. Shannon Sharp on the show.